The ice planet Ethelberg was a monument to a forgotten glory. Its frozen surface, a landscape of endless white and gray under the dim red light of its distant sun, was the last resting place of the oldest species in the known universe. For millennia, humanity had seeded worlds, nurtured life, and then moved on, leaving behind only whispers of their passage. Now, they were the ghosts haunting their own creation. Elias Thorne, his face a roadmap of worry etched into skin that rarely saw the sun, stood in the observation deck of the colony's main habitat. Below him, the geothermal taps that provided their power sputtered, their life-giving heat a fragile thread in the biting cold. The colony was failing, not from conquest or disaster, but from simple, terminal old age. The systems that had sustained them for 5,000 years were beyond repair, the knowledge to build them lost to time. Elias was the colony's archivist, a keeper of memories that stretched back to the first dawn on Earth. His people were waiting for the end, a quiet, dignified fade into the cosmic dark. They had seen it all, built it all, and now they were simply tired. The first sign of them was not a ship, but a shadow that fell over the sun. It was an eclipse that lasted for 3 days, blotting out the crimson light and plunging Ethelberg into an unnatural twilight. When the colossal being finally moved, it was with a slowness that defied comprehension. It was a creature of living rock and ice, a gentle giant the size of a small moon, its form shifting like a slow-motion glacier. It drifted through the system, its immense, unblinking eye turning to regard the planet. To it, the human colony was nothing more than a colorful piece of debris, a child's toy left in the sandbox of space. It reached out, a tendril of gravitic energy as thick as a continent, and brushed against the habitat dome. The structure groaned, not from malice, but from the sheer, gentle pressure. It was the equivalent of a human picking up a snow globe, shaking it to see the little figures inside move. For the colonists, it was an existential terror. They were not being attacked. They were being played with, their entire civilization a fleeting curiosity for a being whose concept of time was measured in eons. Elias found himself at the heart of the colony's response, a frantic, terrified council meeting. The elders spoke of weapons, of desperate plans to scuttle their own habitat and flee in the escape pods, a final, defiant gesture against an incomprehensible foe. But Elias, his mind a whirlwind of half-remembered star charts and ancient texts, saw something else. He saw not an enemy, but a question. These beings were not conquerors. They were explorers of a different kind, their curiosity so vast it was indistinguishable from force. They were the universe asking, "What are you?" And humanity, the oldest species, had no answer. They had forgotten how to be curious, how to marvel. They had become a static relic, a museum exhibit of their own past. Elias argued against violence, his voice thin but steady. "They don't understand us," he insisted. "We are too small, too slow. We cannot fight a mountain. But we can observe. We can learn. This is the first contact we've had in 1,000 years. The first time anyone has truly seen us in an age. We must answer." Against the will of the council, Elias took a small, jury-rigged skiff and flew it directly toward the colossal being. It was an act of profound faith, a belief in the core tenet of his species that had been buried under layers of decay and apathy. He wasn't a soldier. He was an archivist, a student of history. He carried no weapons, only a sensor array and a data recorder, his heart a drum against the silence of space. As he approached, the giant seemed to notice him, its slow gaze fixing on the tiny speck. Elias felt no fear, only a profound, humbling awe. He began to broadcast, not a warning, but a simple greeting in a dozen ancient human languages, followed by complex mathematical sequences, the universal language of physics. He showed them the beauty of a fractal, the elegant chaos of a double helix, the haunting resonance of a perfect fifth. He was sharing the soul of his people, the very thing that had driven them to the stars in the first place. He was not showing them a colony on the brink of death, but the legacy of a species that had once burned with the fire of inquiry. The giant did not speak. It communicated in ways that defied linear thought, a symphony of gravitational waves and light that washed over Elias's mind. He saw its history, not as a timeline, but as a landscape of shifting nebulae and dying stars. It understood. It saw the loneliness of a people who had outlived everything they had ever known. In response, it did not leave. It settled into a stable orbit around Ethelberg, a silent, protective sentinel. Its immense gravity subtly stabilized the planet's waning core, buying the colony precious time. It didn't fix their broken machines. It offered something far more profound: context. For the first time in millennia, humanity was not alone. They were no longer the oldest story in the book, but a single, cherished chapter in an ongoing, incomprehensibly vast narrative. Elias returned to the colony, not as a savior, but as a witness. He brought with him the understanding that their end was not an ending at all, but a transition. The gentle giant had not mistaken them for toys. It had recognized them for what they truly were: the universe's first and most persistent children, forever driven by a need to understand, to learn, and to never stop asking why.